A truthy in JavaScript is a number that is considered true when encountered. So remember the Boolean values, that they can either be true or false, and Booleans are perfect for conditions because we can check to see if a condition is true or false and then render out a block of code depending on what the outcome is. So if we do a statement and if we do true, so this is a very basic condition, and within this we're going to output that was true. Save it, and let's run it in the terminal. So we see that because it's true, then we executed this block of code. If we set it to be false, so this is just another Boolean value, and we run the code again, we're not going to see the statement get executed because in fact this condition was false. It was a falsy. So there's a number of different values that can be true. So let's set some values for x. So let's say x and equal x to, of course, the Boolean values are fairly straightforward. So let's say we do x equals 42. So this is a number. Do you think that x is going to be true or false? So do you think that the output in the console is going to show up or not? And if you said true, then you are correct, because any value that we see is going to be true. If we change this to 0, do you think that we're still going to see was true? Is that a truthy or a falsy? And that in fact is a falsy because this is not going to be output. What if we have a negative value? So let's do a negative 42 and we'll run the code, and we see that that was true because with Booleans only 0 is going to be false, null or a blank value within the string. So if we have an empty string, so we've got nothing contained within that string, this is going to be a false value. But if we have anything at all, any characters at all contained within the string, it's going to be returned back as true. If we have x equals a string value of 0, so do you think this is going to be true or this is going to be false? So let's run that, and in fact this is true because the string is actually containing a character, and the character is going to be a 0. So even though it's a 0, and if we were to change it into a number, it would be false. In this case, x is true because there is a value that's contained within the variable. And this is how we can use different values to check to see if they exist. And this is the fundamentals of setting up a condition where we've got if whatever was within the rounded brackets of the condition is true, then we output that. And we can also have an alternative. We're using else, and we can output something if it's not true. So I'll do not true falsy and truthy. Save that. And let's clear this. And now let's run. So it was true, truthy. And if we update this and if we change this to false, so if we have a Boolean value of false, and we run the code in the terminal, we get not true, falsy being returned back. We also have an option of comparison operators where we can check to see if a value is equal to or not equal to. So let's set up a value of y, and we'll set this one to true. Or how about we set this to a string value of 5. And we set x to a value of 5. So if we say x and check to see if x is equal to y, do you think that this is going to be true, or do you think that this is going to be false? Let me update this, get rid of the truthy, the falsy. So what does this value comparison operator return? Is it going to be true or false? Let's run the code and find out. And this, in fact, was true. So even though the data types are different, it's able to translate this and see that this is true. If we update this to have some more characters and we run the code again, then this time it's not true because 5 is not equal to 5 and the string value of 5. So we can also check and update the comparison operator to be not equal to y. So now when we run the code, that this statement in fact is true, that x is not equal to y. 5 and the number value of 5, and using the 3 equal signs, which also takes into consideration the data type. So if we do 3 equal signs and we check to see if x is equal to y, what do you think is going to happen now? And this is not true, because the third equal sign indicates that we are looking for a data type to be matching as well. So we can also do the not equal to y. And this time, what do you think the statement is going to be? Is this was true or not true? And it was true, because x is strict not equal to y, and that's actually true, that x is strictly not equal to y because the data types are different. There's also, let's update this to be 10 and go through the greater than sign. So we can check to see if x is greater than y, and we know that x is not greater than y, so that's not true. Is x less than y? And let's run the code, and that is true, that x is less than y. So what happens to if they are actually equal? And we do less than y. So that in fact is not true, that's not less than y. And this is where we can use the less than or equal to if we want to do the comparison operator. And now let's run the code. And because x and y are equal, we're going to get returned back that this is true. We can also add in additional conditions. So we've got the if and else, and we can also do an else if. So this allows us to apply another condition, and we can check if x is greater than y, and here we're checking to see if x is less than y. And then lastly, we can always add in the default of else, and here we can say that this was equal, and that should be x is greater than y, and that can say x is bigger, x is less. So let's run the code. I'll clear the terminal, and we'll run app.js, and we see that the result was x was equal to y, so it just did the default condition, because it checked first to see if x is less than y, which was not true because they're both equal. We then checked to see if x is greater than y, and that also was not true. And then lastly, we just defaulted to whatever the default value, the default code was that we wanted to run if none of these conditions were met. So we can also update this to see if x is equal to 10 and if x is equal to 15. So if x is equal to 10, if x is equal to 20, and then this way, if x is not equal to any of these, then we're going to get whatever the default is on the else statement. So try it out within your own editor and try out creating some condition statements where you're using if and else if as well as else to output some content into the console, and you'll be ready to move on to the next lesson.